Well, Bill Gates has published a sort of a landmark article in the New England Journal of Medicine a couple of years ago, where he said that pandemic preparedness is absolute key for this world, and that it's not a question whether something like that would happen, but when. So we don't know whether this is going to develop into the coronavirus, whether that's going to develop into a pandemic. But a lot has happened. When we saw the Ebola crisis, there was a lot of lessons that we drew from that. And it was actually here at the World Economic Forum that the Gates Foundation, many other players, industry, the WHO and others started to develop a novel type of approach that requires an almost military logic. So my assumption is that the world is much better prepared right now, but we need to watch this very, very carefully.
Do you think technology plays a greater role now in the identification of the virus and also tracking who's been where and the spread of the virus? You get to the answers much more quickly than you may have in the past.
There's also there's quite a few technology companies that have joined this coalition of groups to combat that, and picking up trends through mobile phone usage, social media, etc., is really very important.
Let's talk about what you're up to here at Davos, because one of the most important issues for European companies has how they compete in the global environment. And we've already seen this morning that there has been a rollback in tensions between the US and France over digital taxes that has the potential to widen out a little bit further with targeted tariffs, and maybe the rest of Europe would be drawn into some form of a conflict as well. What do you make of how we're setting up in your sector for European competitiveness? Is there an issue?
So our sectors are biotech, laboratory, and semiconductor materials, three very high-tech, highly innovative fields in which Merck is operating. And my current sort of mantra that I carry everywhere is that we need to create a European innovation ecosystem. It exists in the United States, it exists in China, it exists in Israel, for instance, and we've seen some European countries making progress. President Macron has done a lot in this area. The Dutch government has done a lot, but Europe is lagging behind on this.
I wonder if Europe is hampered by its own regulations there, and I've noticed that you've announced that there's a fairly decent investment, like 300 million worth of funds going to some startups in China. We look at the China market around health tech specifically. There's the ability to use AI to gather and process information and then come up with outcomes for health. Surely that's a different ballgame where we're at in Europe, where we're not able to necessarily use the data across jurisdictions, across companies, across sectors to compile information. So isn't Europe going to be hampered by the regulation?
There's a lot of discussion about whether GDPR is hampering progress or whether it's actually enabling progress. Difficult to judge. What is missing in Europe is, on the one hand, is venture capital. You have in the US especially, but also in China and in other spaces, you have a lot more venture capital available, and that is about legislation, what pension funds, what insurances, where they can invest in. Do they need to invest in government bonds, or can they go into venture? We could easily make progress in this area. You also see that these areas that I've mentioned, that there is a close early collaboration between government, academia, sometimes the military, and private enterprise, and there's a coherent government policy toward that. I think we need to do more of that in Europe.
Let's talk a little bit about the backdrop that you're contending with, particularly in Europe. We've seen the IMF come up with its assumptions for growth, world growth, which is just slightly lower than October. So the German economy just skirt recession in 2019. How optimistic are you about what you're contending with in terms of the demand story in Germany and in Europe this year?
Well, our company, Merck, we do less than 6% of our revenue in Germany. We have almost 40% of our revenue in Asia. Our biggest market is the US, and will stay the US. So what happens in the other geographies is actually more important than what happens in Europe. However, Europe is our home base, and regulation and development in Europe matter a lot to us. I feel that there is too little public awareness and debate about the competitiveness of European economies in a global scale.
And a conversation you'll be having with Angela Merkel, Chancellor from Germany, later this week. So
Angela Merkel has called a roundtable together to discuss the competitiveness of European biotech industry. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Hi, I'm Joanna Bersecci, and thank you for watching. You can check out more of our videos by clicking on the boxes on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more from CNBC International. Thank you for watching.